Grover Cleveland was president in 1893. The country was in trouble. An economic panic hit hard. Businesses failed. People lost jobs. Everyone felt scared. It was a serious time. Cleveland was a big man. He was known for being honest. People trusted him. He did not talk much, but when he did, he meant what he said. He had a reputation for truth. Then he found a lump. It was in his mouth, on the roof, near his upper jaw. It felt strange, not a normal bump. It grew quickly. He knew it was bad. He felt worried. Anyone would. He told his closest doctor first. Dr. O'Reilly. O'Reilly checked it out. He was a White House doctor. He knew it was serious. He got other doctors involved. They were top experts. Dr. Bryant, a surgeon. Dr. Janeway, an internist. Dr. Park, a surgeon too. See a few others. They all looked at the lump. They agreed it was a tumor. They were almost sure it was cancer. A very bad kind. It needed to come out fast. But there was a big problem. The country was in that economic panic. People were already on edge. If they knew the president had cancer, it would make things worse. Much worse. The stock market might crash even more. People would lose faith. It could be a disaster. The doctors in Cleveland knew this, so the operation had to be a secret, a total secret. No one could know. Not the public, not the newspapers, not even most of the White House staff. This was a heavy burden for Cleveland. He was known for honesty, but now he had to hide something so big. Where could they do it? Not the White House. Too many people. Too many eyes. A hospital was out too. His reporters would find out right away. They needed a place that was private. Completely private. A place where a famous man like the president could disappear for a few days without causing alarm. Then someone had an idea. A yacht. A friend of Cleveland's named E.C. Benedict owned a yacht. It was called the Oneida. Benedict was rich. His yacht was big enough. It had rooms that could be made into an operating room. It could sail out into the water, away from everything, away from everyone. The plan was set. Cleveland would go on a fishing trip. That was the cover story. Presidents went fishing. It was normal. No one would suspect a thing. He would leave New York Harbor on the yacht Oneida. And on that yacht, far from shore, they would remove the tumor. The president would have secret surgery. It was a bold and risky plan, but they felt it was the only way to protect the country and to save his life. The doctors knew the risks. Surgery was always risky back then. Anesthesia was dangerous. Infection was common, but they had to try for the president, for the nation. Cleveland agreed. He had to be brave. He had to trust these men with his life and with the future of the United States. He prepared himself. It was a quiet, fearful time for him, but he kept it hidden from everyone except a very small, trusted group. This secret was heavy. The yacht Oneida was a nice boat, owned by E.C. Benedict. He was a wealthy banker. The boat was usually for pleasure trips, but for this trip it would be different. It would become a floating hospital. The cover story was ready. President Cleveland was going fishing. It sounded perfectly normal. He often went fishing. So when the Oneida left New York Harbor on July 1st, 1893, few people thought anything of it. A president enjoying a summer weekend, but on board it was not a pleasure trip. The atmosphere was tense. There were several doctors, Dr. Bryant, the main surgeon, Dr. Janeway, who would handle the anesthesia, and Dr. Park, another surgeon. A dentist, Dr. Carlin, was there too. His role was important. We'll get to that. Plus a few close friends of Cleveland and the yacht's regular crew. Everyone knew the real purpose of the trip, and everyone knew the extreme need for secrecy. They had transformed the main salon of the yacht. It was usually a fancy living space. Now, it was set up for surgery. They brought in surgical instruments, sterilizing them as best they could in those days. There was a large chair, like a dentist's chair, but more for surgery. Special lighting. They had ether for the anesthesia, and bandages, medicines, everything a surgeon needed. It was not a modern operating room, but they made do with what they had. The Oneida sailed out into Long Island Sound. The water was calm, the weather was fair, it was a beautiful summer day, but inside the yacht, the mood was serious. Cleveland was surely scared. He was a strong man, but facing surgery, especially in such a secretive, makeshift way, must have been terrifying. He knew he had to go through with it, for his country and for his life. The doctors prepared. They checked their instruments, they talked quietly, they went over the steps of the operation. While Dr. Janeway prepared the ether, it was a powerful chemical that could put a person to sleep. But it also carried risks. Sometimes people did not wake up, or they had bad reactions. The time came. Cleveland got ready. He was given the ether. Slowly, he drifted into unconsciousness. The room grew quiet except for the soft lapping of waves against the hull and the controlled breathing of the president under anesthesia. The surgery began. Dr. Bryant took the lead. Dr. Park assisted. Dr. Janeway monitored Cleveland's breathing and heart. The other doctors watched, ready to help. This was a high-stakes operation on a yacht in the middle of the water, with the future of the nation hanging in the balance. The yacht sailed on. No one shore knew what was happening. The deception worked. The public believed their president was simply enjoying a fishing trip, but he was fighting for his life. And a small group of doctors was fighting to save him in secret. The tension on board was immense. Every person involved carried a huge responsibility. They had to succeed. They could not fail. Not with the President of the United States. The operation started. It was July 1st, 1893. Cleveland was under ether. Dr. Janeway carefully watched him. Anesthesia back then was not as precise as it is today. Too much, and a patient might not wake up. Too little, and they would feel pain. It was a delicate balance. Dr. Bryant was the lead surgeon. He was good. Very skilled. He knew he had to be extra careful. The tumor was in Cleveland's mouth, high up on the roof near his upper jaw. They needed to get it all out. They decided not to make any cuts on Cleveland's face. That would leave a scar. A scar would be noticed. It would give away the secret. So, Dr. Bryant went in through the mouth. He made an incision along the roof of Cleveland's mouth. It was a difficult place to work. The tumor was bigger than they first thought. It was the size of a pigeon's egg. Maybe a bit larger. It had grown into the bone. This meant they could not just cut it out. They had to remove part of Cleveland's upper jawbone, and part of his hard palate, the bony roof of his mouth. It was a complex and extensive procedure. Dr. Bryant used special instruments. He had to be precise. He cut away the tumor. He removed some bone. It was not easy. The team worked quickly and carefully. They wanted to get it all to make sure no cancer cells were left behind. The operation took about 90 minutes. It was a long time for a surgery back then, especially one involving bone removal in such a delicate area. When they finished, Cleveland's mouth had a large wound, a big hole where the tumor and bone used to be. They packed the wound, and then came the hard part, waking Cleveland up. Dr. Janeway brought him out of the ether. Cleveland was groggy, confused, and in a lot of pain. He couldn't speak clearly. His mouth was full of bandages. It must have been a terrible feeling. The doctors examined the tissue they removed. It looked bad. They sent it for a closer look later, but they were pretty sure it was epithelioma, a type of cancer, a serious one. But they believed they had gotten it all. For the next few days, Cleveland stayed on the yacht. He recovered, slowly. He couldn't eat solid food. He mostly drank liquids. He still couldn't talk well. His face was swollen. He looked different. The doctors stayed with him, monitoring his recovery. They gave him pain relief. The yacht returned to shore a few days later. The fishing trip was over. Cleveland walked off the boat. He looked tired, a bit pale. His mustache helped hide some of the swelling. He tried to look normal. He did his best. But he was not normal. He had a gaping hole in his mouth. And the public still knew nothing. The secret was holding, for now, but it was a fragile thing. A president had cancer. He had a major surgery, and he was trying to pretend none of it happened. It was an incredible deception, and it would not be easy to maintain, especially with the journalist already sniffing around. The true test of the cover-up was about to begin. Cleveland was back on land. He went to his summer home. He tried to get back to work, but he was not well. He had trouble speaking. His voice sounded different. He still ate mostly soft foods. He had a large open wound inside his mouth. It was hard to hide. The official story was that he had a bad tooth pulled, and that his mouth was just sore from dental work. This was the role of the dentist, Dr. Carlin, who was on the yacht. He was part of the cover. A toothache, a difficult extraction. Explained the swelling and the quietness. Many people believed it, or at least they didn't have a reason to doubt it. But a journalist named E.J. Edwards was digging. He worked for the Philadelphia Press. Edwards was a good reporter. He heard whispers. Maybe from someone on the yacht, maybe from a doctor who talked too much. No one knows for sure how he got the information. But he got it. He heard the president had cancer. He heard about the secret surgery. On a yacht, Edwards published his story on August 29th, 1893. It was a bombshell. He laid it all out. The lump, the cancer diagnosis, the secret trip on the Oneida, the surgery, the removal of part of Cleveland's jaw. He even named some of the doctors involved. It was a very detailed and accurate account. The White House reacted quickly and fiercely. They denied everything. They called Edwards a liar. They said his story was a fabrication, a cheap attempt to sell newspapers. They went on the attack. Dr. O'Reilly, Cleveland's personal physician, publicly stated that Edwards' story was an absolute fabrication. Other doctors involved in the surgery also denied it. They had agreed to keep the secret. And they did. They lied to the public. The public was confused. Who to believe? The president's office or a newspaper reporter? The president was known for his honesty. The economy was still bad. People didn't want more bad news. Many believed the denials. They trusted the president more than a journalist. They dismissed Edwards' story as sensationalism. But Edwards was scorned. Other newspapers called him a fraud. His reputation was damaged. He was mostly forgotten for many years. His career suffered. But he was right. He had uncovered the truth. Cleveland kept working. He managed to do his duties, but the internal changes were significant. Doctors later designed a rubber prosthetic. It was fitted into his mouth. It covered the hole. It helped him speak more clearly, and it made it easier for him to eat. He adapted. He had to. The cover-up held. It was successful for the rest of Cleveland's presidency. The real story remained hidden from the general public. The economic crisis probably helped. People had bigger worries than speculating about the president's health. The focus was on jobs, on money, on survival. The secret held tight for many years. It was an extraordinary act of deception carried out by the highest office in the land. Grover Cleveland lived for many more years after the secret surgery. He finished his second term as president. He lived until 1908. He was 71 when he died. The cancer never came back. The surgery had been a success. He managed to live a full life, despite the missing part of his jaw and palate. The rubber prosthetic helped him. It let him speak and eat well enough. He kept up appearances. The truth about his operation did not fully come out until almost 15 years after the surgery, and nearly a decade after Cleveland died. In 1917, Dr. W. W. Keene, one of the surgeons involved in Cleveland's care, though not on the yacht itself, he was consulted afterward and involved in the long-term management, wrote an account. He published it in the Saturday Evening Post. Dr. Keene felt it was time. Cleveland was dead. There was no longer a need to protect him or the country from panic. Keene wanted to set the record straight. He wanted to give credit to the brave doctors who performed the difficult, secret operation. He also wanted to show how serious the situation had been, and how important the secrecy was at the time. When Keene's account was published, it caused a stir. People were amazed. They were also surprised. Many remembered Edwards' original story from 1893. Now Edwards was vindicated. He had been right all along. The president's office had lied. The doctors had lied. It was a big deal. People looked back at Cleveland's presidency. They remembered his reputation for honesty. The secret surgery complicated that image. Was it right to lie to the public? Some argued yes. The country was in crisis. Revealing the president's cancer could have caused more panic, made the economic situation worse. It was a necessary deception, they said, to protect the nation. Others argued no. A president should always be honest with the people. Even in tough times, they felt it was a betrayal of trust. It showed that the government could hide major facts from its citizens. It raised questions about transparency and leadership. The incident highlights the immense pressure on a president. Cleveland was a man facing a life-threatening illness. He also carried the weight of the nation on his shoulders. He had to make a tough call. He chose secrecy. He believed it was for the greater good. Today, such a secret would be impossible. News travels too fast. There are too many eyes, too many media outlets. A president's health is closely watched. Every detail is public. The idea of a secret surgery on a yacht seems like something from another era. And it was. It was a time before instant communication, before the constant scrutiny of the modern presidency. Cleveland's secret surgery remains a fascinating story. It shows the human side of a president. A man dealing with fear, pain, and the heavy burden of leadership. It also shows the lengths to which people would go to protect the stability of the country, and the lasting questions about honesty, secrecy, and the public's right to know. It was a moment where a president's personal health became a matter of national security, handled with extraordinary secrecy and a brave act of medical skill.